You know, in Hollywood, there are a few names that instantly make people stop and listen. Johnny Depp is one of them. For over 4 decades, he's been everything: a heartthrob, an outsider, a legend, and sometimes even a mystery. He's the kind of actor who disappears so completely into his characters that you forget where he ends and where the role begins. He's played pirates, poets, loners, lovers, and everything in between. But here's something you might not expect. When someone once asked him a simple question, "Which of your on-screen kisses was your favorite?" his answer stunned everyone. It wasn't the one fans predicted. It wasn't a romantic scene with a famous leading lady. It was something completely unexpected, and oddly touching because the answer revealed not just a sense of humor, but something deeply human about who Johnny Depp really is. Let's rewind. Over the years, Johnny shared the screen with some of Hollywood's most admired actresses: Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, Keira Knightley, Penelope Cruz. The list goes on. Every one of those films gave us moments that people still talk about, from the magical snow kiss scene in Edward Scissorhands to the slow burn chemistry in The Tourist. Fans have often wondered which one meant the most to him. So when Johnny Depp appeared in an interview years later and was asked that very question, the interviewer expected a charming, flirty Hollywood answer. Maybe he'd say Winona, because they dated in real life. Maybe Keira Knightley, because their kiss in Pirates of the Caribbean became one of the franchise's most watched moments. Or perhaps Angelina Jolie, because their chemistry on screen was undeniable. But no, Johnny smiled. That calm, mischievous smile paused for just a moment and said, "My favorite on-screen kiss? Javier Bardem." For a second, the interviewer laughed, thinking he was joking, but Johnny wasn't joking at all. He meant it. And that single line made everyone sit up and ask, "Wait, what?" Because Javier Bardem isn't a romantic co-star. At least, not in the traditional sense. He's one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic actors, best known for roles like the chilling villain in No Country for Old Men or the intense hero in Before Night Falls. And it turns out, it was that last film, Before Night Falls, that gave Johnny the kiss he would never forget. The movie came out in the year 2000. It tells the life story of Reynaldo Arenas, a Cuban poet and novelist who lived through political persecution and personal tragedy under the Castro regime. It's not a light-hearted film. It's emotional, poetic, and filled with pain, love, and courage. Javier Bardem played Reynaldo. The lead, Johnny Depp, played 2 roles. Yes, 2 in the same movie. One of those roles was Bon Bon, a flamboyant, kind-hearted drag performer and friend of Reynaldo. The other was a cruel military officer named Lieutenant Victor, and in one of the film's quietest, most unexpected scenes, Bon Bon and Reynaldo share a gentle, emotional kiss in a prison yard. It's not meant to be glamorous. It's not meant to be shocking. It's meant to be human. And that, according to Johnny, was the kiss that stayed with him. When he was asked years later about it, he explained it simply. It wasn't about romance or attraction. It was about honesty, commitment, and connection. It was about stepping fully into a moment. No pretense, no hesitation, no ego, he said. It wasn't about love scenes or heat or chemistry. It was about trust. That's Johnny Depp for you, always finding meaning in the unexpected. To understand why that answer makes so much sense, you have to understand how Johnny works. He's not the kind of actor who shows up, says his lines, and goes home. He immerses himself. He studies the character's mind, their heartbeat, their truth. When he takes on a role, he becomes it. Body, voice, posture, even silence. And that's exactly what happened on Before Night Falls. Javier Bardem once said in an interview that working with Johnny on that film was like dancing. He described him as soft, flexible, generous, a perfect partner. The two spent an entire day filming that one small kiss scene, making sure it felt real, not forced, not mechanical. And when it was done, both actors walked away knowing they had created something rare. The kiss wasn't famous. It wasn't the highlight of the movie for critics. But for Johnny Depp, it was a reminder of what acting is truly about. Truth, vulnerability, and connection between two human beings. Now, fast forward to years later when he was asked that question on television, people expected a headline moment. Instead, he gave them a glimpse of authenticity. And in a world full of scripted answers and media-trained replies, that honesty was refreshing. But what's even more interesting is why it shocked people so much, because we've been conditioned to think that actors' favorite moments must always be glamorous. The romantic sunset kisses, the slow-motion camera sweeps, the love stories that break box offices. But Johnny's choice turned that upside down. He said, in his own quiet way, the best moments aren't always the prettiest. They're the truest. Think about that for a second. Here's a man who has acted opposite some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. And he picks a scene from an art house drama shot 25 years ago as his favorite. It tells you that for Johnny, performance isn't about image, it's about honesty. And that honesty has always been his strength. Even in his biggest roles, Edward Scissorhands, Captain Jack Sparrow, Donnie Brasco. He plays characters who are outsiders, misunderstood, or simply human in a strange world. That's what connects people to him. He doesn't just perform, he feels. And you see that again here. He didn't pick the safe answer. He didn't pick the crowd pleaser. He picked the moment that made him feel alive as an artist. A moment where there were no walls, no judgment, no boundaries, just two actors breathing truth into a story. Now, let's pause on something Javier Bardem said about that day. He told reporters, "The scene took a full day to film, and I loved working with Johnny. It was a dance. He's a brave actor. That says everything, because in that small exchange, just one kiss, you have two actors who trusted each other completely. No fear. No ego, just story. That's also why fans respect Johnny Depp so deeply, because he's never played it safe. He takes the weird roles, the risky projects, the emotionally charged stories, even when the world expects him to just be the charming movie star. He constantly chooses meaning over glamour. And maybe that's the real secret behind his answer. That kiss represented everything he stands for. Art over image. Truth over expectation. It's easy to forget that Before Night Falls came out long before the height of Johnny's global fame with Pirates of the Caribbean. At the time, he wasn't chasing blockbuster success, he was chasing substance. He was working with directors and writers who wanted to tell stories about real people, not just sell tickets. So when he recalls that moment, he's remembering a time when acting was still about exploration, curiosity, and emotional courage. And you can feel that nostalgia in the way he speaks about it. Quietly, respectfully, almost protectively. Now, let's be clear, he wasn't dismissing his other co-stars. He's spoken warmly about all of them, he said, working with Winona Ryder in Edward Scissorhands was magical because their real-life connection made the scenes natural. He's described Angelina Jolie as graceful and smart, and Keira Knightley as wonderfully talented. But when it comes to that single question, the most memorable on screen, kiss, he picked the one that was least expected. And maybe the most honest. Even fans who laughed at first later admitted, the answer actually makes sense. Because if you know Johnny Depp, truly know how he thinks, that choice fits him perfectly. He's never been about the obvious. He's always been drawn to the strange, the poetic, the real, and honestly, that's why people love him. Because beneath all the fame and the eccentric roles, he's still that same artist who values meaning more than money, art more than fame, and truth more than the easy answer. It's also worth remembering what Before Night Falls represents. The movie isn't just a biopic, it's about freedom, courage, and living authentically in a world that wants to silence you. Reinaldo Arenas was persecuted for being who he was. Bon. Johnny's character existed on the margins of that world. Still shining, still kind, still human. So when Johnny remembers that kiss as his favorite, maybe it's because it captured something much bigger. The courage to be vulnerable. And if you followed Johnny's own journey, the trials, the public battles, the scrutiny. You realize that vulnerability has been his lifelong theme. That's what makes the moment so symbolic. It wasn't just acting, it was empathy in motion. When people saw that clip of Johnny giving his answer, most reacted with laughter first, then curiosity, then admiration, because even after all these years, he still finds ways to surprise us, and that's part of his magic, his unpredictability. He's not giving rehearsed answers, he's being himself. In interviews over the years, Johnny Depp has repeated one truth about himself, and it's the key to understanding who he really is beneath all the fame and the headlines. He said time and again that he never wanted to be a celebrity. He never chased red carpets or awards. He never wanted the spotlight for its own sake. What he wanted, what he still wants, is to disappear into stories, to become someone else, to feel the thrill of creation, not the weight of attention. He once said, "I like being characters. I don't like being me in front of cameras." It's a line that almost defines him. Because when you think about it, that's exactly what he's done throughout his career. He's turned himself into a kind of living canvas. He steps out of his own identity and into worlds that feel larger, stranger, freer. For him, acting isn't pretending. It's a kind of escape, almost a refuge. When you look back at his roles, you start to see that pattern. From Edward Scissorhands to Jack Sparrow to Donnie Brasco, each character gave him something that real life couldn't, a chance to express parts of himself that didn't fit neatly into the ordinary world. Maybe that's why he's always seemed a little uncomfortable in interviews, at award shows, or in front of flashing cameras. Because that's Johnny being himself, not a character. And for him, that's the hardest role of all. So when he gave that now famous answer about his favorite on-screen kiss, it made perfect sense, even if most people didn't realize it right away. The question was about him, his personal feelings, his experiences, his emotions. But instead of answering from ego or attraction, he answered from the perspective of an actor. He talked about the work, about truth, about the art of connection. He didn't choose a kiss that was sexy or glamorous. He chose one that represented the spirit of storytelling, that sacred moment between two performers when the scene stops being a performance and becomes real. That's what Johnny values most. He once described acting as a way to explore humanity. Every role, he said, is a new chance to study the human condition, not to impress, but to understand. And that's what his philosophy really is. To him, fame is noise, but character, that's music. Every time he takes on a role, he listens for the melody that makes that person unique. He tries to live it, breathe it, even dream it. That's why his characters never feel fake. They're alive. They're strange, yes, but they're alive. When Johnny says, "I like being characters," he's really saying, "I like being free." Because characters let him go where Johnny Depp, the celebrity, cannot. Inside a story, he's not judged. He's not chased by tabloids. He's not analyzed by strangers. He's just creating. And that's what he loves most. So when he says his favorite on-screen kiss was with Javier Bardem, he's not making a joke or a statement. He's pointing us back to what matters to him, the art of connection. The beauty of truth between two actors who believe in the same moment. It's not about gender, fame, or glamour. It's about sincerity. In that sense, his answer becomes symbolic. It's Johnny reminding everyone that behind every scene, there's a heartbeat. Behind every performance, there's an artist searching for something real. And behind every headline, there's still a man who never wanted to be a star. Just a storyteller trying to make the world feel something honest. One scene at a time, and that's probably why, 20+ years later, fans still talk about that answer. Because in one small moment, he reminded everyone what acting is supposed to be about. Now imagine the contrast. He could have said any name, Winona, Angelina, Kira, and it would have been a headline for a day. But by saying Javier Bardem, he turned a throwaway question into a reminder of his artistic soul. He made people stop and think, and that's something only Johnny Depp could do. There's a quiet poetry to the way he moves through the world, even in chaos. He finds stillness, even in laughter. He finds depth. And that's why moments like this, A simple question, a surprising answer, feel like windows into who he really is. Behind the eccentric characters, behind the celebrity image, there's a storyteller who still believes in feeling something real. That's why a small scene from a 2000 drama still matters to him. If you think about it, it's kind of poetic. An actor known for fantasy, pirates, mad hatters, chocolate makers, picks his favorite moment from a film rooted in reality. No costumes, no CGI, no spectacle, just two people, one story, and a kiss that meant something, and maybe that's the message he wanted to send without even realizing it. In a world full of noise, truth still matters. In a business built on illusion, authenticity still wins, so yes, Johnny Depp's favorite on-screen kiss wasn't what anyone expected, but maybe that's exactly why it means so much. Because the best answers, like the best performances, are the ones that surprise us and remind us that even movie stars are still human. So what do you think? Did Johnny's choice surprise you, or do you see why that moment might have stayed with him? Either way, it's one of those rare Hollywood stories that makes you smile, think, and maybe even feel something. Because sometimes one small confession, one unexpected answer, can tell us more about a person than 100 interviews ever could. And that's the quiet genius of Johnny Depp.